Hey everybody, what's up? It's Joe at Jordan Films, and today I'm gonna do a rig tour for my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K. All right guys, before we dive into the actual rig, I want to talk about why you may need to rig the pocket cameras. Now this goes for the Pocket Cinema 4K as well as the 6K. Essentially they are the same body, the only difference is the lens mount. So the reason why we rig the pocket camera is to solve a couple problems, and in particular, the problems are the battery life. We all know the battery life on the pocket cameras is absolutely horrendous. There also is a fixed screen, so when you're filming, you don't always have clear view of the screen, so especially when you're filming low angle shots. In this case, we need to add an external monitor. Now, another reason we decided to rig the camera is the fact that the Pocket 4K and 6K are very lightweight cameras. Now, for those of you who don't know, the lighter the camera, the more susceptible to camera shake it'll be, especially when doing slow camera movements or just walking around and getting handheld shots. Now, if you're on a tripod, this absolutely does not matter. You're gonna get a stable shot either way, but if you're doing handheld footage, you want a nice heavy camera. You don't want something too heavy or too bulky, but you want something that's gonna add some weight to the camera. Now, another issue is that we need to mount the external SSD somewhere. To do that, you need a cage or some sort of bracket. Knowing the problems that I needed to solve while building this rig helped me to build something that suits my needs as a filmmaker. So without further ado, let's dive into the rig. So now on to what I consider the core of the rig, and that is the Smallrig cage system. I chose to go with a full cage. This way I have mounting solutions on the right side of the cage. I have mounting points on the left. Now what I love about the Smallrig cage is it has a built-in NATO rail. Some cages from Smallrig, you have to add a NATO rail. So what I like about the Blackmagic cages is that it does have built-in NATO rails. So you'll see here on the top, I use the Smallrig SSD holder. This is for the Samsung T5 SSD. Now, as you can see here, the cage does have a hot shoe mount, but unfortunately it is covered, like I said, by the SSD. Now, the way to solve that is by adding an additional hot shoe mount to the right-hand side of the cage. This way you can mount a microphone if needed or any other accessories. I chose a baseplate system that is actually dedicated and made specifically for the Pocket 4K and 6K cages. What I like about this thing is that it does have a quick release built in. There's a little red latch here and also a safety rail that prevents the tripod plate from sliding off. Now the baseplate does come with an option of a Manfrotto 501 PL baseplate, or you could choose an Arca Swiss baseplate. Now, thanks to the Manfrotto 501 PL baseplate, I'm able to take the camera with the cage and anything on top and separate it from the rig here and attach it to something like a slider, another tripod, or a gimbal. This is achieved through using these Manfrotto 577 quick release adapters. I have several of these. I use them on gimbals, I use them on sliders, and these things are very clutch. They are about $47 and they come with a tripod plate that is, again, a Manfrotto 501 PL. And all you have to do is turn this little knob here and hit the quick release button and you can slide your base plate in. So these things make life a heck of a lot easier. I have these on any sort of mounting piece. I put these on my Ronin S, I put these on my Mobi Pro. They're always on sliders when need be. Now, this makes things so much easier. I don't have to screw base plates into everything. I just take the camera off the rig, attach it to this, boom, ready to go. Also built into the baseplate system is a 15mm rod system. This allows you to add 15mm rods. Those are standard rods, and you end up at an 85mm rod height. On the bottom of the baseplate, you have these standard tripod mounting screws, but you also have the option to use an RE dovetail. The RE dovetail is something I definitely want to pick up for this rig at some point. Now, speaking of the rod system, I chose to go with something a little unconventional here. Instead of using two long rods, I went with a 4-piece system. I used two 15mm rods that are 12 inches in length, and then I attached those to two 6-inch rods with connectors from Smallrig. This allows me to remove the entire rear end of the rod system if I choose to. That is exactly why I chose to go with the rod system. It's a 4-piece rod setup. Again, it's very modular. I can add and remove parts if necessary. For the matte box, I chose to go with the Misfit Atom by Bright Tangerine. This is an extremely high quality matte box, and it is honestly worth the cost. As you can see here, it is mounted via the rod system. What that does is it allows me to quickly release the matte box from the rod system off the front of the camera and out of the way. You can remove the rubber surround from it. This way, if you just need to use a filter, you can. The Misfit Atom accepts 4x4 inch and 4x5.65 inch filters, and you could stack up to 2 filters. Another feature of this matte box is that you can get an optional carbon fiber flag, which allows you to attach the flag to the front of the matte box here. And what that does is it allows you to adjust the angle of the flag, and that can, flag off some flares coming into the matte box. And overall, it is a really high quality piece. Again, like I said, everything from Bright Tangerine is incredibly high quality. I'll do a full review on this thing, but keep in mind, it's a very lightweight matte box. Again, it's modular. I could add and remove parts if necessary. Now moving on to the follow focus. I chose to go with a mechanical follow focus here because I really do not like using a wireless follow focus on a handheld setup. Wireless follow focuses are incredible if you're using a remote setup or if you have an AC pulling focus for you, but I personally feel that there really is no need to use a wireless follow focus on a handheld rig. So I went with the Tilta Follow Focus Mini. This is a very lightweight follow focus. It's versatile and modular. You could remove the focus ring here and attach it to the other side. Coming in at only $100, you really can't beat that for a follow focus. It's very reliable. I don't have to worry about batteries ever dying. I don't have to worry about hooking wires up to get power. If I need to change lenses, I don't have to sync it to another lens. It's ready to go every single time. So now you'll see here, I also have a lens support. It's tucked away underneath, and it is mounted to the rig via the rod system. Now, unfortunately, if I want to remove the lens support, I do have to remove the follow focus and the matte box, but that's not too big of a problem because it is an easily adjustable lens support. You'll see here, I'm using the Rokinon Cinema lens. It's not a very heavy lens, but I do like to add the support because it's always better to have it than not. This way you're not adding unnecessary strain to the camera's lens mount. Now moving on to the handle system. I guess we can call this a custom part because you cannot buy this from Smallrig directly. I took the rubber grip from another handle and added it to the NATO rail adapter from another handle from Smallrig. So I combined the two, and this way I have a very comfortable handle. Now this attaches directly to the cage via the NATO rail. This allows me to quickly remove the whole handle from the rig if I need to get onto a gimbal. Now moving on to the monitor system, I chose to go with a Smallrig NATO rail monitor holder. What I did is I attached it to the handle via the 1/4-20 and I flipped it upside down. So instead of screwing the monitor holder into the actual monitor, I chose to go with the NATO rail side to attach the monitor via the NATO rail on the Smallrig cage here on the Ninja V. Now the reason I did choose to go with the Atomus is that it does have incredible monitoring tools. Yes, the Blackmagic Pocket 4K does have awesome monitoring tools and I use them all the time. However, I love the focus peaking on the Ninja V. It's an incredible monitor. It's very, very bright, almost best in class for the 5-inch displays. You could also attach a sunshade to the front of the monitor here, and that's something I use very often, especially when filming in the daytime. But overall, I love the fact that the handle system here and the monitor mount is all quick release. I have 2 options to make it quick release, and I can either remove it from the NATO clamp on the cage, or I can remove just the monitor from the NATO rail here, and I can attach an additional accessory if needed. So now moving on to the audio setup here. Now what I have here is a Saramonic UW Mic 9 setup. This is a wireless lav system. The way I have this set up is I have a hot shoe adapter on the side of the cage, and I have the receiver pack here attached to that hot shoe. And I have the audio running into the Mini XLR via a cable by Blue Condor. So for those of you who have used wireless lav systems, you know that they are not always reliable. So that being said, I needed a backup audio solution. To do that, I use the Rode Video Mic Pro Plus. This is an amazing little shotgun mic. You plug it into the camera via the 3.5mm stereo jack. I use it on the hot shoe mount on the right side of the camera, and this gives me a very high quality backup audio track. And if I'm filming outdoors where it's very windy, I do use a dead cat. Now, if you watched my review on the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, you do know that the Pocket 4K can record 2 tracks internally, and you can adjust levels independently depending on what you're recording. Last but not least is the battery solution. I chose to go with a V-mount solution here, and I power the camera via the D-tap connector on the V-mount battery. The battery I went with is the Core HyperCore Slim. It is a 98 watts per hour battery. At full charge, it'll power the camera for almost 3.5 hours. It has a very useful illuminated screen here. You just hit a button and it tells you exactly how much time you have left to run the devices that are plugged into the battery at the time. If needed, I can use a D-tap splitter, and I can mount it here on this cheese plate here, and I could use that D-tap splitter to power the monitor as well. To build the battery support, I chose to go with Smallrig again. I used 3 parts here. I used the rail block, I used a large cheese plate, and I also used the V-lock battery attachment. One thing I like about using this large cheese plate is there are several mounting holes here, so you could add accessories such as the Hollyland Mars 300 wireless transmission system. I would use something like this if I needed to transmit a video signal to someone who's pulling focus for me. Now, I know a lot of people are gonna say your battery is upright and it's blocking the screen. It is absolutely not blocking the screen. I can see it perfectly. Now, personally, I prefer having a longer rig. I don't want a small compact setup. I like the fact that I could use the battery to rest against my chest and create a third point of contact. This allows me to get very smooth handheld shots with just a little bit of camera shake, just enough to give it a cinematic feel. So in the event that I don't want to use this rear mount battery solution, I could actually use the Core SWX power base battery. Thanks to the Manfrotto 501PL mounting plate on the quick release system, I could attach the cage with the camera to the bottom of the Core SWX power base, because I'm using another Manfrotto product, which is this quick release system right here. Now, this attaches directly to the Core SWX power base via a screw here, which is just a standard tripod screw, and it allows you to quickly and easily attach a mounting plate. One thing to keep in mind though is the Core SWX power base is only 47 watts per hour, whereas this HyperCore Slim is 98. So you get a lot more runtime out of the HyperCore Slim. All right guys, bonus tips. When you're building a rig, one thing I suggest you do is to get some Velcro straps. These things are really cheap. You can get them on Amazon. Now what I use these for is to tie down cables. The last thing you want is a bunch of messy cables getting in the way of things. These little Velcro straps come in handy all the time, and they're very cheap, so that's good. Another thing that I highly recommend you get is a Allen key set. I got this little set from Home Depot. It's a Husky Allen key set, and it has every size I would possibly need when building a rig. Now, most of Smallrig parts do require Allen keys. You don't want to carry all 3, 4, or 5 different size Allen keys, so having something like this is very useful. One thing to note that some of the Smallrig cages and handles do come with integrated Allen keys. So if you have that, you may not need this, but I do highly recommend it. They're a couple bucks, pick them up. One final tip for building your rig is to make sure it's personalized. What works for me may not work for you. You may not like a very heavy rig. You may want something extremely lightweight. When building a rig, there is no right and wrong. Every camera operator is different. Everyone has different taste. Everyone holds their camera different. So when you're building your rig, keep that in mind. You're building this rig for you. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button. If you have any questions, definitely drop a comment below. I love talking to you guys. I'll do my best to answer your questions. And as always, please hit that subscribe button. This way you don't miss out on any of our future videos. Now, speaking of other videos, if you haven't checked it out yet, be sure to watch our review video on the Blackmagic Pocket 4K. Until next time, take care.